ride is comforting, if a bit run down. Still, you've earned a rest. Across the room, the heating system hums its soft lullaby. The mattress feels soft and sheets warm. It only takes you moments for the world to fall away.
Thoughts, baby. A million little lights in the dark. You're one fine instrument, brother. All those faces and all those names. All that laughter and screaming and scheming around. Every corner and every street.
Recorded in you, forever, on Faraday.
On and on it goes, for untold hours. At the disco where you first asked her to dance. Rising, rising. Above the dark curvature, the great wingspan of sleep. Studded with stars.
Behold, there are millions of them down there. The first time. The last time. The smoke in her mouth. The plotted flowers. The faces turning, changing.
It's the world, Harry boy. And you're made of it. You can never forget this shit.
Beautiful. It's stuck on loop, whirling, spitting out words and images.
You're the son of the world again. Harrister, a ceaseless agent. Picking up litter and old newspapers, collecting your little bubblegum wrappers and idiotic picture postcards. Meaningless, meaningless keepsakes.
Reading your awful letters and recalling things, aren't you? The endless names of the world. An address book you are. The map of a city.
You'll go insane if you keep going like this. One more day, and you'll be in the loony bin. I just know you will. And for what, brother man?
For the working, for the money, baby. For the greater good. For Revacon. Always and only Revacon.
Solving your little crossword puzzles. Doing your tasks. Crossing names off lists. Trying to become some sort of world detector. It won't make it okay. It won't put smoke back in her mouth.
He's got no idea what he's in for.
Beep, beep, beep. The alarm is ringing, Harry. The disco circus goes on and on. You barely slept 3 hours last night.
Do it for the wind. Good. You're up. Listen, there's something that's been bothering you for a few days now. It's a suspicion, or a feeling really, that things are not quite in hand around here. Every day, things seem to spin more and more wildly, out of control. The center isn't holding. And despite your efforts to moderate and contain these energies, things only seem to be getting worse. Oh sure, you've been making progress on your case, interviewing people, solving side tasks. But who's focusing on the big questions? But have you ever seen them? How do you know they're even there? More importantly, how do you know they aren't waiting for your participation. You've got to find out who bears la responsabilité. The most awesome, terrible thing. It is human nature to crave la responsabilité and to deny it. That's why it must be distributed across many different organizations, agencies, offices, and portfolios. Harry, you're thinking about this too narrowly. La Responsabilité isn't concerned with trivial questions like who killed who. It's about the real issues, the human welfare index, the price of staple goods, the transition to real democracy. Whoa. This isn't some kind of dictatorship. You can't simply seize la responsabilité for yourself. It must be given by a legitimate authority, like a committee. Only the most even-keeled minds in Martinaise. Your half-brother, the lieutenant, is a natural place to start. Together, you'll be able to discover who has la responsabilité in Revachol. And, if necessary, you'll have the wisdom and expertise to assign it among yourselves. Most likely, your findings will be collected in a report, which will be carefully reviewed by your superiors. Once they've reviewed it, those same superiors will produce a set of recommendations to be taken up at the next meeting of the Standing Committee. Rest assured, no matter what happens, it will be done through the proper channels. Good luck. Your report is eagerly anticipated.
Yes? I'm glad to hear it, Detective. I was wondering when we'd get to this very subject. If you ask me, it's high time for you to set aside these frivolous side tasks and focus 100% of your energies on the case before us. Why are you pronouncing it like that gentleman from the Institute of Stabilité? You know what? Forget it. What specifically are you trying to assign responsibility for? Now I understand. Next, I suppose you're going to tell me you need to form a committee to assign this responsibility? Simple. Because moral intern types love to form committees. In any event, I am just a humble law official. I may work under the moral intern's umbrella, but I'm certainly not qualified to serve on any committee. You know who might be, though? That Mr. Villedroit, the gentleman you met in the young man's apartment. If I were trying to get in touch with the coalition, I would start by seeking him out. But first you might need to speak with his young companion. Now, was there anything else?
Hi again, Gendarme. Oh, a committee. How interesting. And if I may ask, Gendarme, what is this committee about? God, of course it is. My friend is always trying to convince me I need a little more responsibility. As though I don't have enough going on already. In any case, I would love to help. But the thing is, I don't know where he is. We don't talk about everything, you see. He might have mentioned something about making a tour of some historical sites up the coast. In an unofficial capacity, of course. Not a clue. I'm not his agenda keeper, you see. I guess you will. Bye-bye, Gendarme.
As you approach, the man turns and greets you with a polite wave.
Ah, super. It's the officer. I was not expecting to run into you again, but things have a funny way of turning out, no? What brings you down to the scenic Martinez coast? My friend, if it's la responsabilité you're after, I have good news for you. There's no need to form such a committee, because it already exists. The Comité de Responsabilité de Revachol. It acts as a sort of clearinghouse for coalition activities. To put it simply, they are the ultimate arbiters of la responsabilité in this part of the world.
Yes, this is just the sort of reasonable authority you're looking for.
I would offer to connect you with the committee myself, but alas, I am not actually in Martinez.
What? Where is he then?
Why, officially, I am still in La Delta, preparing for an upcoming conference on fuel oil derivatives. I'm only in Martinez in an unofficial capacity. That's why it would be extremely irregular, or potentially even inappropriate for me to intercede with the committee concerning a district I'm not officially in. Yes, you've made your persistence quite clear. Under normal circumstances, I would have to insist you go through the regular channels.
No. You can't let them give you the runaround.
But if you have information of a vital interest, they might be willing to entertain an exception. In which case, I would advise you to contact them via Coalition Warship Archer. Officer, you mean to say that you haven't noticed the giant Coalition aerostatic peacefully patrolling the skies over Rivasham?
You follow the man's gaze out toward the west. There, hanging some distance above the horizon, you can just make out a strange silhouette. It looks to your eye like some kind of long metallic fish suspended beneath a number of ceiling fans. Don't let the paint job fool you. It's a goddamn killing machine, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Isn't it? A triumph of both technical ingenuity and international cooperation. I, for one, feel much safer knowing it's up there watching all of us. You see, in addition to being an airborne artillery platform, Coalition Warship Archer is also the linchpin of the Coalition's surveillance and communications infrastructure in Revachol. And listening. It has the most objective vantage point in the entire city. Not to mention a vast array of radio, photographic, and meteorological monitoring instruments. I find it a great comfort to know there are benevolent powers watching over all, in strict accordance with the Wayfarer Act and the Bristol-Mühne Conventions. This is quite the problem. Very tricky. Of course, the Archer has orders to fire on any unidentified aerostatics that might approach it, so it might be safer to get in touch from the ground. But in that case, you would require a radio transmitter capable of broadcasting on coalition frequencies. And that kind of technology naturally isn't typically available for non-coalition use. Yes, it is a bit of a conundrum. I suppose there might be some way to circuit bend your way onto those frequencies, but you'd have to be one of those techno-tinkerers to do it. Unfortunately not, no. I don't have the pleasure. I am merely a representative of the coalition government, not very well versed in technology. But you?
Sounds like something that programmer we met in the church might be able to help with.
Let me just say that I have complete confidence in the RCM. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Always my pleasure to be of assistance to the RCM. Godspeed, and if we don't meet again, bonne chance.
Yes, what is it? You're asking me to circuit bend onto coalition radio frequencies. You want to know, is it possible? Probably. But is it a good idea? I'm not so sure. The main difficulty will be finding an antenna powerful enough to reach those frequencies. Unfortunately, you can't exactly buy mega long-wave antennas off the shelf.
She's not joking. Even the RCM is restricted to shortwave bands for our communications. You need special approval from the coalition to receive access to that kind of equipment.
I highly doubt it. That tower is barely able to transmit shortwave signals across the bay. To generate megalow frequencies, we're going to need a much larger antenna. I don't see any alternative. We're just going to have to build the antenna ourselves. Because it's a completely different class of antenna. It would be like using a high-end racing carriage where a long-distance lorry is required. We need metal, a lot of it. The taller the structure, the better. Something that is both prominent and easily accessible. If it's near a power source, even better. Yes, what is it?
Close your eyes. Unfold your mental map of Martinez. It's morning. You're standing on the plaza before the Whirling in Rags. The wind pushes a piece of tear across the cracked tiles. From the north comes the malicious laughter of two children. Your eye follows the tiles west. You see a bench and a few twisted, pitiful trees. Then, just water. From behind you, a low, spectral voice whispers, "Nay." Beyond the unkempt backyard rises a monstrous assemblage of concrete, plaster, and corrugated sheet metal. The voice again, more urgent now. "Nay." You turn around. The morning sun is blinding. You bring your hand to your brow, and a great shadow materializes before you. A towering beast, frozen in mid-air.
The dead king and his horse. It could work. We'll need an adequate power supply and a great quantity of cable. If we connect the cables to some of the stranded lorries, we could theoretically increase the antenna's wavelength exponentially.
Whatever ambivalence she had about your project before, she's now fully engaged in solving this technical puzzle.
It's completely ridiculous, but I believe we could transform the entire roundabout into one solid fractal antenna.
A note of awe in her voice. She's shocked and pleased by her own audacity.
Yes, very likely the largest private antenna in Revachol. I have plenty of cables and amplifiers on hand. The power supply I will secure on my own. All we require now is the radio transceiver itself. I cannot answer that for you, but I don't expect it to be that difficult. There's no shortage of radios around here. If you have real to spare, you might even be able to buy one. But it doesn't really matter where it comes from, so long as it works.
And before you ask, no, you can't have the radio from Akinema either.
That sounds like a perfectly adequate radio. In the meantime, I will gather the rest of the materials. We will meet back here when you have it.
A common office radio, like any of those found in countless waiting rooms, lounges, and other semi-public spaces all over the world.
There's usually a little switch somewhere. Ah yes, it's the one that says release.
The lock disengages with a nice click. You may now safely remove the transceiver unit. There's nothing obviously remarkable about it. It's about the size of a common pasta box, with knobs of molded plastic. What else is there to say? If this transceiver were a person, it would be an accountant at a large logistics firm. Perfectly competent, but unexceptional.
It does have a certain no-nonsense appeal, doesn't it?
The transceiver appears quite at peace with its appearance.
You've surprised me more than once during the course of our investigation, but I have to say it still seems like a remote scenario.
With its transceiver gone, the radio has ceased its persistent buzzing. It is as silent as a headstone.
Yes, what is it? Ah, very good. Let's see what you have. Not the most advanced model, but at least everything appears to be in order. Yes, this should serve our purposes.
No further comment necessary.
I believe that means we're ready to get started. I should warn you, once we begin setting up this antenna, we'll need to see the whole process through. There won't be any second chances, any do-overs. You understand? So if there's anything you'd like to get in order before we depart, I suggest you do it now. Ah, yes. I wasn't sure what to do about that, but then I discovered an abandoned power source down by the edge of the bay.
It's obvious. She's referring to your half-sunken Caprice 40.
Oh, yes. I did notice that it was covered in police livery. Then you already know that the carriage itself is irreparable, but the rear-mounted engine seems to be in fine working order. My intention is to run a power cable from the engine up to the antenna. It won't last forever, but it should give us enough time to establish a connection with Coalition warship Archer. That's up to you. At a minimum, I would make sure you are physically and mentally prepared for an intense and difficult process. Once we begin, there can be no interruptions.
At the very least, you should make sure you're wearing a good pair of gloves.
Radio engineers typically carry overpriced solvent sprays to clean the antenna connections. But in a pinch, some common ammonia works just fine.
Psst. It's the alcohol in the ammonia that's doing the real work. Kinda like with you.
Finally, there's the question of stimulants. Some people prefer to keep legal amphetamines on hand to help with their work. I'm not one of them, but they do exist. I don't take them because they make me nauseous. But everyone has their reasons. I don't judge. That's fine. Return to me when you're ready to go. Yes, what is it? Very good?
Back across the water lab. At least we are getting our exercise in today.
If you'll please carry that amplifier, officer. And if you'll take that spool of cable, we should be able to move it all in one trip. And now if you'll just connect that here...
It's done. I believe we are ready.
We're ready to try at least. Please put on these headphones. There should be 2 extra sets. I've configured the channels so that only your microphone is set to broadcast, officer. We'll all be able to listen, but anyone we reach will only hear your voice. You will need to transmit your connection request while I attempt to locate the warship's public frequency. You will likely encounter some interference, but it's important to keep transmitting your request until you're acknowledged. Ready? Then, it will be exactly like every other moment of every other day. I ask again, are you ready? Good. Beginning transmission.
A soft rustling between your ears, a winterscape with fast falling snow. Every light switch, every motor carriage, every doorbell, tea kettle, and radio in Martinez, all mingled with electrical interference caused by scattered thunderstorms over ozone.
Officer, are you in order? We're waiting for you to start.
Is there anybody there? The lieutenant looks up at you with a nervous glance. Nervous for who, though? You cannot say.
Try again, officer.
Marianne hat mir erzählt, dass Oscar nicht mehr derselbe ist, seit er auf einem Luftschiff aus Graz zurückgekommen ist. Natürlich halten wir die Psychologen für vollkommen normal, aber sie hat das Gefühl, seit seiner Rückkehr mit einem Fremden zusammenzuleben.
You can't make out a word of this gibberish. The rustling of dry autumn leaves, waves breaking at a distance, 1,000 wings beating at once.
Liebling, bitte. Er ist unser einziges Kind. Er kann auch nächstes Jahr zur Akademie gehen.
It's crosstalk. In all likelihood, they can't hear you. You have to keep trying until we get a signal through. Again?
It's gone now.
A slight frisson at the point where your neck meets your spine. Something about the lieutenant's words directed at you, but not you.
I didn't say anything, Detective.
Someone has been maintaining it. The wiring has been repaired.
An uncomfortable silence falls over the connection.
It's been a long winter. Long and cold.
I promise you I didn't, even though it certainly sounds like me.
I can't say with certainty, but it sounds very much like anthroponetic crosstalk. It happens sometimes when sending transmissions across long stretches of pale.
Ah, yes, of course. That must be it.
Outwardly, they both exude calm, but there's something disturbing about this thought to both of them.
Natürlich halten wir die Psychologen für vollkommen normal.
What else is there to do? Keep trying.
But someone has been maintaining it. The wiring has been repaired. Liebling, bitte. Er ist unser einziges Kind.
Where's she partner? Please identify.
The signals are getting increasingly mixed. Plucking Archer's signal from this will be like isolating a single strand from a tangle of hair.
It's not working. The crosstalk is simply too strong. I did not expect simply locating the signal to be so difficult. We must consider several variables. Local anthroponetic conditions, the sophistication of our transceiver, the quality of our connections, and the physics of our antenna itself. Our transceiver is perfectly capable, so there is no problem there. And we're also unlikely to change our local anthroponetic conditions. So, the next step is to thoroughly inspect our connections. You need to climb up there and look at them for yourself.
Someone has been maintaining it.
Something about this setup seems dimly familiar, but you'll be damned if you know what you're supposed to do about it. Your gloves give you a solid grip on the metal bar. This feels pleasingly familiar. You don't exactly cut a lithesome figure, but after several moments of scrambling, you manage to hoist yourself atop the monument. That performance was frankly an embarrassment. The connection itself is nothing more than a little braid of exposed wire wrapped about the hoof of the horse. A copper fetter it cannot slip. The whole monument is covered in a thin but durable layer of oil and grime. It's obvious no one has cleaned it in years. It takes a few moments, but the alcohol gradually begins to break down the oils surrounding the copper wiring.
Is this really the time, Detective?
It's all right, Lieutenant. He's simply cleaning the connections.
Once the oils have been dissolved, you wipe off the connections with your sleeve and reattach the cable.
It seems to have made some difference, but unfortunately not enough to alter the overall situation. Unser einziges Kind. Er kann doch auch nächstes Jahr zur Akademie gehen. Short of changing the shape of the antenna, I'm not sure what else we can do from here. And the lorries are all jammed together, so that's unlikely to happen.
Ideally, narrow the receiving mode so that we can isolate the warship signal and eliminate the crosstalk. But if you don't know what you're doing, of course you could just make it worse. What do you mean? You adjust the antenna manually, with your hands. I'm afraid we're out of alternatives. You're just going to have to go for it.
She's right. The responsibility is yours, and yours alone. There's no turning back now. You allow the broken hunk of metal to clatter to the ground. It wasn't clear to you it did anything anyway.
Nein, Liebling! What are you doing? The connection is even worse now. This is extremely unprofessional. But you did it.
You made things worse.
She's right. This was your responsibility.
Damn it. I'm going to push the power supply. I doubt it will last more than a few minutes, so you'd better make them count.
A maelstrom of sound, swirling and swirling around an invisible point. It's mounting, mounting.
Nicht mehr derselbe ist, seit er auf einem Luftschiff aus Grad zurückgekommen ist.
Lieutenant Dubois, please respond.
It's too much. Your eardrums are throbbing, about to burst.
A long winter, long and cold.
And then,
Drive now.
This is Worship Arthur. We are acknowledging and accepting it. Though we're still getting quite a bit of interference.
This is the best we can do. I suggest you get to your business quickly. I doubt I'll be able to maintain even this connection very long.
this is it. You're finally getting to speak with those who hold real power. There is so much you wish you could ask, but you probably only have time for 1 or 2 questions before the signal is lost.
Please be advised that you are speaking on a public frequency. What is your request? Acknowledge. To reach the committee, all you need to do is fill out the appropriate request form and submit it to the liaison for public affairs. If the liaison accepts your request, you will be invited to address the committee at their next quarterly public hearing. We believe the next hearing is scheduled for July.
She's got to be jerking your chain, right? You can't wait that long. This isn't about you. Not really. It may have been at a certain point, but you've let go of that perspective. This is about your responsibility to all of Revachon. Now, take a deep breath. Look upward. You don't have to bear the burden alone.
What? How do you know this? What's your tone? Now, please describe the situation in as much detail as you can.
There's papers rustling in the background. She's clearing her desk, preparing to take notes. There, you've wedged your foot in the door. Now, if you can show the coalition how much they're needed, they'll have no choice but to intervene.
Please continue. We're listening. We have it. Is there anything else the committee should know?
Detective, before you answer that, I urge you to weigh your words extremely carefully.
We're afraid we must ask you to repeat that, Lieutenant Dubois.
Her tone has shifted. She's no longer herself. She's reading from a script. Your words have activated some sort of procedure.
Acknowledge. Listen very carefully, Lieutenant. We're going to ask you a series of questions. It is imperative that you answer as directly and truthfully as you can. Do you understand? Good. First question. Are you currently in the vicinity of Surragli, the North Arcade Islands, or near Pale Offshore Platform in Indico? Very good. Next question. Would you describe the phenomenon as internal to the Isola or external to the Isola?
What she means is, actually, you have no idea what those words could mean in this context.
Next question. At the time, did you experience sense objects? Yes. Examples may include sound, memory, light. Let's go on. Final question. Were you alone?
There's no need to overthink this.
We repeat. Were you alone?
You hear the sound of a page ripping.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Please stand by while we transmit our summary.
A long winter.
I'm not sure how much longer I can keep the signal clear, officer.
Lieutenant Dubois, this is collision worship Archer. Please acknowledge. Thank you for standing by. We are authorized to report the Committee of Responsibility for Reversal has acknowledged and accepted your request. They would like you to address your matter to the committee directly, as their earliest convenience. Subito. Collision Shuttle Laurel is setting a course for your position. They will arrive momentarily. Stand by.
To the southwest, one of the smaller aerostatics that hover above the city breaks from its holding pattern. Coalition Shuttle Laurel begins executing a slow turn, drawn by an invisible wire.
So, they're really coming.
The lieutenant adjusts his microphone and slowly looks up toward you.
Well, what now? You've accomplished your side task. You've contacted Coalition Warship Archer. I suppose what I'm asking is whether we are about to lose you to the moral intern. I don't. What are you saying, Detective?
The lieutenant takes a moment to compose his thoughts.
Detective, each of us has our part to play in the world. My part is to solve crimes. I am under no illusion that my role isn't a minor one in the scheme of things. But I embrace it because it's my role, and it's yours too, Detective, whether you accept it or not.
The lieutenant's final words are nearly swallowed by the roar of the aerostatic's main rotors.
Lieutenant Dubois, this is Collision Warship Archer. We have been instructed to inform you that the Laurel arrived at your position. Please acknowledge.
No shit. How are they supposed to hear your acknowledgement over the thundering of their own rotors?
Thank you. The Committee of Responsibility for Reversal has authorized us to offer you an immediate extraction. Do you accept?
The roundabout, Martinez North, daytime. Across the plaza, a pair of seagulls fight over the remains of a chicken wing. The programmer eyes you curiously. She does not understand why you're hesitating. Whatever her misgivings about the Coalition, the fact is that you've summoned an aerostatic with your voice, an achievement she never thought she'd witness. The lieutenant looks up toward you. He starts to open his mouth, then appears to think better of it. There is something, a whisper, circulating among the city's footnoted alleyways and along its electrical wires. But what it's saying, you can't tell. It seems to be a message meant for someone else.
Acknowledge. Laurel has initiated the extraction procedure. Stand by.
Marianne hat mir erzählt, dass Oscar nicht mehr derselbe ist, seit er auf einem Luftschiff...
Weeks later, no answers about extracted cop. The condition and whereabouts of an RCM officer extracted by a Coalition aerostatic 2 weeks ago remain unknown. The dramatic maneuver witnessed by dozens near the North Roundabout has reportedly increased tensions between the citizens of Martinaise, the RCM, and coalition authorities. Early reports that the lieutenant was investigating entropinetic phenomena along the coast have not been confirmed. According to an official statement given by the RCM, the lieutenant was in Martinaise as part of a murder investigation. A coalition representative declined repeated requests for comment.